Game of the Year has been announced, and of course we all knew who will win. However, to get so many rewards for a single game is quite astonishing. I'm not going to lie, playing this game was really exciting.
Come on, man, that's too easy.
Nerve-wracking,
But I pressed it! Hello!
somewhat emotional,
Fuck this game, bruh.
and let's just say overall fun. But before we continue, make sure to drop a follow on Twitch, TikTok, and subscribe for more videos like this, since some maybe likes me well to suffer. Playing League on EU West, we all know how French people are. Not being a nationalist is just a fact, PTSD thing. I don't have anything against French people, since my favorite Pixar movie is Ratatouille. Before we start with the story, first I want to go through things like combat, side quests, skins, as well as weapons, pictos, collectibles, but also stats and skills. Firstly, the skins are unlocked by doing side quests around the map, parkour challenges, and some merchants sell them. They don't give you any bonus stats, but just overall fashion, which is quite nice, and you can customize the characters however you like, with lots of different haircuts, clothes. What I would say does suck, they aren't given from purchasing like a DLC, so you will have to reach a certain point to unlock the skins you want. Even though this game is filled with lots of bosses, well over 30, some of them give you broken weapons that you can use for easier encounter against the main story bosses. Simon being one of the most popular ones, as we all know.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck you—
Bosses are like chemical chain that just unravel backstory of a certain character. For example, there was a boss who unrevealed more of Luna's backstory and about her parents, which was really cool and just in depth for her character. Plus, you get one of the best weapons for her. Collectibles are just one of the most exhausting things in games, but for a completionist it's a must. And this game delivered, to the point where there are dozens of things to collect and just adds you like another 50 to 70 hours to a game. With that being 49 journals, 10 Nevron quests, 5 gestural games, 9 lost gestrals, 44 Monko skills, and 33 music records. And yes, the main currency is chroma that is used to buy off a merchant. Going through campaign is one thing, but in order to take down those bosses easier and faster, you must level up your characters. What I love about this game is that you have no limits when it comes to playstyles. If you want a tank, you can do so by upgrading defense and vigor. If you want a character to do more damage, you upgrade damage, crit chance, and dexterity. If you want to use powerful abilities, you upgrade spirit and mind. Pictos are more like bonus stats that will be crucial and just overall helpful through the game, whether you are level 1 or level 99. Depending on in what stage of the game you are, through time, defeating side bosses, doing side quests, or buying them off the merchants, you can unlock some ridiculous pictos that are just required for certain builds. Playing through campaign, you will unlock tons of new skills which are just icing on a cake, to the point where you have ultimate abilities that can do tons of damage. However, in order to perform them, you will need to fill up a meter by dodging and parrying in order to do them. A lot of ultimate abilities are unlocked when you reach a certain level of relationship levels with each character, so make sure to do so. The game has been rewarded with the best RPG, but honestly being turn-based kind of sucks, since the bosses have thousands of moves before you only get one turn per character, while in the meantime you dodge and parry their attacks. Some are faster, some are slower, some deal less damage and some do more, but bosses always do lots of variants of attacks. There are jump counters, gradient parry, basic parry, and of course a dodge. Dodging won't give you AP that is used for higher skills based attacks, but at least you won't take damage. If the character dies or is low on HP, or maybe you don't even have enough AP, you can always use potions, but be careful since they are limited by the number and the amount you have. The game opens up with a gentleman sightseeing the tower that had number 33 on it, but he wasn't alone. There was a girl named Mael who was like a daughter to him. Gustav's over here wants to give a rose to a lady for quite few reasons, one of them being things did not end on good terms, and what better timing to change that before the upcoming event that is going to happen. However, Gustav was in luck since Sophie was never over him. The doors were never closed. Love for each other was still there. The reason behind breaking up was simple yet complicated. Gustav joined the expeditioners so they can stop the main villain, or at least try to, like others did before him. A paintress that takes people away who were that age. In this timeline, it was anyone who was 33 years old. While approaching to the harbor, we can chat with civilians talking about this upcoming event. I myself took the time snooping around, and let's just say a lady playing a guitar got me seduced. However, what this game delivers with are dialogues. You can get some really nice rewards, but not so much material, more emotional. For example, this painter wanted to paint Sophie and Gustav together. At the harbor, some kids gathered up with us and gave us a code that was actually Sophie's idea, so in return Gustav promised to write in a diary about the upcoming expedition so the kids could read it. However, me and Gustav have the same luck with women, so half of the people just vanished, including her. Preparing for the expedition was a bit dry, since you can just get tokens, unlock outfits and haircuts. Like, why wouldn't they let this be free or just make it a DLC and earn a couple of more bucks? Honestly, they should hire me for more financial advices. We practiced some more combat with Mael, and this girl wasn't holding back. This time I raged a bit, but won the duel against her after a couple of Alt F4s and retries, since if you fail, you can't go back. And guess what the reward was? Yes, a fucking token for more haircuts and outfits. Gustav had a sibling named Emma, and she was a chief counselor. Of course, she hated to see him leave for expedition, but at least she gave them a speech and went to a war. As soon as they set foot on island, an old guy that was aura farming killed almost all of them and sent his minions to end the job. Somehow, Gustav spawned in meadows trying to find others in process, and he did. Whole lot of them. He was in a cave, just one small problem. They were all dead. Of course, he got a bit emotional from seeing all the blood and bodies, so he tried to off himself. Me as a player motivated him to do it, since I like to not spread the positive comments. Remember the chick that played a guitar and seduced me? Yeah, her name was Loon, and she was also a part of the expedition and stopped Gustav from pulling the trigger. I was a bit let down but happy to see a baddie. Of course, she was a bit iron-fisted, motivated him to keep going and to find others, but before we do that, we had to defeat this big ass of a monster and got a Pictos. Loon and Gustav came on enemy territory where they had a first boss fight, which was simple, just use attack and skills. If he shielded up, shoot it down, and that's about it. At the top of the tree, someone put a symbol of expedition, but without their initial, which was weird for them, thinking it was a trap, but it was the moment where the game lets us in an open world, and some places are designed as sort of entrance to the level. But before we continue, they decided to rest.
A bit, but the moon is bright. I want to keep moving.
Have you learned nothing from the beach?
No, I am not leaving Mael alone a minute longer than I have to.
But right now, it's just the two of us, and I don't want to bring Mael your corpse.
Yeah. Lucien died to save me. I am not letting Mael die out here. I'm taking her home.
What? No, no, no! We have a mission!
Oh, fuck the mission! Fuck the mission, Lune! What are we gonna do, huh? Tell me. What are we gonna do? We're gonna take down the paintress, just the three of us? My gun and your sparks?
I didn't take you for a coward.
I'm not a coward.
You swore the oath. When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if. When. We knew not all of us would make it, but we continue. As long as even one of us stands, our fight is not over.
But I'm not afraid to fight, it's just Mael, she's...
Mael swore the same oath.
I know that!
She chose her life.
Now I must admit you something. I'm not an emotional person, even though Last of Us, which was one of the most emotional games for people, for me it was, well, a circus of laughter. But this game got me invested. The way writers wrote each character, how they think, their morals, backstory for each character was interesting. However, all of them followed one rule and one rule only. And it was what Lune said. When one falls, we continue. Yes, Lucas died for Gustav, but he continued. Yes, Mael and others still needs to be found, but they still had to continue on their own. The expedition continues in Bikini Bottom, and this was my first time seeing this sort of rare loot. But before we can get to it, we needed to destroy 3 of these balls scattered around the area to get some good stuff. And we did. Potion that we can use for more healing. What I love about this game is that it always leaves you on your toes. You think it's going to be from point A to point B, but there's actually point C, D, F, G. You get the gist. One of them being a door that led to a mansion where they found Mael. Happily reunited, a ghost came behind them, leading them to an exit, but before they go through, we fought him. Since we found Mael, might as well use her, but let's just say, if you know what you are building, what stances are you using and skills, she can be quite OP. Of course, since it was my first time and using her, it took me some time to figure it out. When they reached outside, some minions spawned in named Gestrels that was leading us to his village. He was also a merchant where you can exchange things for chroma and fight him for bonus rewards. Some give you weapons, some give you pictos and skins like mentioned previously. At the exit of Bikini Bottom, we found a single rose at the center. And let me tell you, this was a painful experience for me. Even though I completed Sekiro and Dark Souls games multiple times, I'm still shit at them, and we got encountering against the boss that spawned tons of flowers and he used them for shields. Of course, my slow brain forgot to shoot them, so I failed a lot, but managed to defeat him after a couple of tries. Back at the campfire, the game just throws us into Mael's nightmares, and the more you play, the more you realize things after. But for some reason, she could have seen the upcoming events that are about to happen. We still didn't know what happened to Mael's parents, but she had Gustav, who was like a father figure to her and gave her emotional support. Also, remember the butler from the mansion? Yeah, he came to our campfire, and when we interacted with him, he could upgrade things for us as well as Lumina. Luminas grant you extra damage, defensive boost, status immunity and more, and are just crucial for builds and characters, but also a party altogether. Loon over here had lots of questions that needed answers, so they headed to the village Jester told us about, and they did. But before, of course, they got jumped by machines that these little fuckers made, and it pissed me off since it could basically one-shot you and still didn't know how to parry or dodge. So I struggled for another 40 minutes. And then had to fight their ultimate warrior that basically had a cannon, shield and a bat. What more do you want from me, game? The fight wasn't hard, but long to the point where I realized each fight from now on could last me a few minutes long or a few seconds if I could do tons of damage to them. Blowing their final warrior to pieces, we finally could enter the village, where we had to talk with their village chief named Golgora. But in order to get some answers, we had to participate and win in the tournament. Now, before we continue, some friendly advice. If you want a broken weapon to be unlocked early for Mael, use her to fight in a tournament, or you will suffer and potentially give up like I did later on, since then you would have to fight Golgora, who one-shots you no matter the level and stats, that has 2 or 3 phases. I only managed to get to the second one and gave up. Okay, now let's continue. In this final battle, we actually found out that their champion was one of the members of our team, named Sile, who had a scythe. However, I wasn't using her that much, but you can pretty much go tank or damage with her. Following that day, we had to find SK, that Golgora told us about, and let's just say that the character surprised me, since I thought it would be just human, not whatever this is. However, the guy was super chill and just wanted to find his rocks to unlock some abilities. However, his neighbor named Francis had a rock, who was just a turtle with laser beam. Spoiler alert, it one-shots you. What was super fun is that we could use SK as a faster way to travel, and he could have got us to places we couldn't access before, one of them being Stone Cliffs. Inside of Stone Cliffs, we got introduced to a boss for the first time who had 2 phases. His name was Lampmaster. First phase was relatively easy once you learn his moves. However, the second one was a bit harder, but I recommend you to shoot the lamps in order he lights them up to ease up the fight, but once he's destroyed, he drops a rock for SK to absorb, so he could finally float on water and for us to travel across the seas. Before they continue, game developers decided to do one thing we all hate to see. Yes, one of the characters died, that being Gustav, who was shot by the old man. Somehow Gustav got up and tried to fight him, while this guy was just aura farming and did not throw a single punch. Forgot to mention that Gustav had a metal arm. After he used a laser beam, he just fell off right after, sacrificing himself for a greater good. and for the team to push forward. Now I know that this man was powerful and their mission was to kill the paintress, but I think we all knew from that moment on the final boss would be the old guy. What's fascinating about this story is that the new guy from the dream stood up against the old man, and the old guy mentioned a family being torn apart. The dots are being connected, and I realized that the old guy wanted Mael so badly since she looked like his daughter, and the stranger that gave Mael a hand reminded him of his sister. After devastating loss of Gustav, the team was falling apart. However, a stranger that saved Mael decided to join the team, and his name was Verso. Verso over here was Esquil's friend. Also nice is that the more you talk to the character, you get high relationship levels with them, but also their backstory and why they joined the expeditioners. Lune joined because of her parents, Sile because of her dead husband, Mael, well, she didn't have anywhere to go, while Gustavo for a greater cause. And Verso over here was the oldest and was trapped here since the first expedition, hasn't told them that yet. What's also nice about this gentleman is that Verso decided to go bury Gustav with them, so they went all together to a certain location. Although before that, we got introduced with Verso's combat system. He was kind of a high risk, high reward type of character. We will do lots of damage if you could perform higher skills. You needed a high grade to perform, as being the perfect rank and some abilities costing you less. In order to get the higher grade, you need to perfectly parry. Getting across the bridge seemed simple, right? Like you just had to walk to other end. Well, guess what, cocksuckers? Not in this game, since a giant monster with 2 swords dropped us 500 meters down waiting to kill us. In my opinion, this was one of my favorite bosses to fight against because he reminded me of Pontiff from Dark Souls 3. Who knows, maybe they had an idea from the game including the boss design, since they both had dual swords and, well, both of them had 2 phases. And of course, chat was giving me heart attacks saying that there is also a third one.
Third phase? Nikki, suck my dick, bro. Nah, do not play around. I lost my mental composure right now.
But as soon as the cinematics rolled out, I knew it, he was defeated. Gustav was buried, and after we got back to the campfire, Verso told us a plan on how to get to a paintress. And now I will explain you graphically. You see, Verso decided to hire his old pal named Monaco at Monaco station. And since we can't just walk up to this bitch, firstly we had to destroy her heart, so the barrier can drop down, and then afterwards we could approach her and kill her, since the chroma is too dense and will just erase us from existence. Just like my will to live while fighting against Monaco, since this guy again can just one-shot you after his white monkey ass jumps on you and smacks you with a stick. After we practiced against him, he decided to join us, so we had to go to Old Lumiere, which was like a time travel sort of thing, where this was a Lumiere from the past. This retard of a Monaco decided to show off to a Haz how good he is, making a skillful move that set the team apart, and later on cried about it. Lune and Sile got to the center of the city pretty quickly. However, they had a sense of feeling that Verso was actually hiding something, but they just couldn't prove it yet. However, Lune found an exon that told some things about Verso, making the rest of the team worried. For a second I thought he was a pedophile, but as soon as we played as Verso and Mael, I struggled for another 40 minutes trying to defeat 2 guards just so Verso could escape, making Mael travel to the old manor alone. And guess what, who was waiting at the entrance? Yes, an old man and a copy of Mael, but also there was a strange woman inside of a house, probably their mother. While family drama was going on, Lune and Sael decided to join and learn that the old man was named Renoir and Verso was his son. This was one of the many fights against Renoir, and let's just say each and every time it gets harder. This being my first fight against him, of course it took me some time to defeat him and to learn his patterns, since he had lots of abilities that could just one-shot you, plus multiple fast ones to parry or dodge, as well as the longer parry called Gradient, which deals a lot of damage. Once parried, but an also opportunity to not just vaporize into atoms, since we can't bring the characters back anymore if it's failed. And of course the old man had 2 phases, killing Noko, one of the jesters. What's sad but also good at the same time is that they respawn, but their soul is lost forever. However, Mael got emotional and swinged at the man, so he decided to swing back. Verso in the meantime blocked it, making the time just stop. But also the mansion, the child and the mother, Mansion and himself just disappeared. But at least we learned that the girl name was Alicia. While family drama was being at its peak, the desire to kill the paintress was just growing. And like mentioned before, we needed to destroy the heart, but before we can get to the heart, we needed a weapon that was crafted by killing 2 Axons. Thankfully, there were 3 in the world, and 1 being already wounded. One of them being Siren, who was a dancer. Even though the boss was nicely designed, with lots of cinematics and movements that just came out of nowhere and being distracted with the moves. Like for example, in this last phase where I was so mesmerized of animations while she just threw a building on me. And it was super nice. After a few tries it got annoying, tiring and just time consuming wise. But after an hour and a half we finally got her down, giving me a single piece of cloth like game. Holy fucking shit, you couldn't just make something special, but no, instead this looks like it was bought off a Chinese corner store. Anyhow, the butler wanted Mael to give it to him and saw Renoir for a second, hinting us that the butler is actually him, but just potentially trapped, or at least his good side, and the cloth potentially was tied to Alicia. Nonetheless, after we got to the location named Visage, where the boss had lots of masks, each presenting an emotion, we got jumped by a mask keeper who was, and I quote, his servant, or so we thought, since to get the easier fight against Visage, we needed to destroy 3 masks, aka 3 emotions: sadness, aggression, and joy. And so we did, making our first fight against giants easier. But the true boss was actually the mask keeper himself, trapping everyone by putting on a mask on others. However, not on Sayel, since she wasn't hiding from who she is and accepted the truth long time ago. A girl that flirted with Verso but warned him that he will never be loved like her dead husband. But at least we know that the others were in denial. They weren't on emotional level like her because she mourned from the guilt, pain, death, accepting without change, and knew that the paintress wasn't truly an enemy, just she never said it out loud. After giving the butler all the things he needed, he crafted Mael a weapon that was actually lasting us for some time and finally could go on a mission to destroy the paintress' heart. Alicia gave letter to Averso and was actually right, she was his sister. However,
we're taking her down. She's not the only one who grieves. The pain of losing you, she made me inherit it. Punishment, perhaps, for not being there when it mattered. I refuse to lose my son. That son was a stranger. But you're not. You're not. You lost me years ago, and I lost you. So you leave us no choice. Tell me, how are you different from her in doing this? I'm tired. So trust me. We are your family. Family is complicated.
while Renoir was talking to Verso, it all made sense. Verso was sick and tired of being in this loophole, as well as sick and tired of seeing people dying, and accepted these fake illusions, so that's why he wanted Paintress to die. He met a lot of people and even this new team, but everything must come to an end, even the fake illusions, the fake happiness that he sees, and the Renoir's denial of accepting the reality, and he tried to stop the Verso, who was on the mission in the second fight, which took me good 2 hours of learning his new movements, especially the second phase. But the Curator and Mael killed the side of Renoir for good, making the whole mission coming to an end. We finally defeated the Paintress, of course after a couple of phases and beautiful cinematics. All of the people came back to life, or so we thought, because after the big explosion everyone got erased, including the expedition, setting us to the past of the reality from Alicia's POV. And the reality was that her mother was a paintress. She painted the world where we were just inside, and Verso was actually dead this whole time. Renoir grieved that loss, as well as she had another sister named Clea, who was actually furious and evil, and put Alice back into the painting, starting the Act 3. Where we actually had to make a choice after defeating Renoir, but this time the real Renoir. Either we play as Verso and defeat the canvas, or we play as Mael and stick with the illusion. I decided the sadder path and picked the Verso, because the fake scenarios aren't good and sometimes the right thing to do and the hard thing to do are usually the same thing. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I know this was a different kind of video because usually I make a piece out of it, but this game really touched me in some ways, not the weird ones. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Please subscribe for more of these types of videos and let me know down in the comments what video we should do next.